There's a war going on right now. Not on a battlefield, not between nations, not on the evening news. It's happening inside your head. You know the feeling, the endless noise of thoughts that never seem to stop, the what-ifs, the doubts, the regrets. You're not good enough. You're running out of time. You'll never be happy. They whisper so quietly at first that you almost don't notice them. But they grow louder, heavier, more convincing, until your mind becomes a prison built from your own thoughts. Most people don't even realize they're fighting a war. They just wake up, feel heavy, scroll through their phones, drag themselves through another day, and call it normal. But somewhere inside, they're drowning. Their minds, instead of helping them, are slowly destroying them. You can have money, fame, talent, even love. But if you lose control of your mind, none of it matters. Because the mind, when untamed, is like fire. Powerful when controlled, destructive when left wild. This isn't about pretending everything's fine. It's about understanding how your mind works, learning how to take the wheel again, because once you lose control, the spiral begins. And it doesn't stop until you decide to stop it. And that's where our story begins, with Daniel. A man who looked successful to everyone else, but deep inside, his mind was tearing him apart. Daniel was 32, working as a project manager in a busy tech firm. From the outside, he was everything people admired: responsible, calm, efficient. He lived in a clean apartment, drove a nice car, and always looked put together. If you met him, you'd think he was the kind of person who had life figured out. But every morning, Daniel woke up with a knot in his chest. It wasn't fear exactly, more like emptiness. He'd stare at the ceiling for a few minutes before getting up, his mind already racing with everything he hadn't done, everything he should have done better. He used to dream big. When he was younger, he wanted to build his own design studio, something creative, something meaningful. But the world, as it always does, whispered practical advice. Play it safe, get a stable job, you can chase your dreams later. Later never came. Years passed. He climbed the corporate ladder, but somewhere along the way, he lost himself. The spark that once made him excited to create, to explore, was gone. Every day felt like copy-paste. Wake up, work, smile, sleep, repeat. He told himself he was fine, that this was what adulthood was supposed to feel like, but deep down he knew it wasn't living. It was surviving. At work, he played the part. He laughed at jokes, met deadlines, even helped others manage stress. But when the meetings ended and the emails stopped, silence hit him like a wave. And in that silence, the mind spoke. You're wasting your life. He tried ignoring it. He filled his days with distractions, podcasts, gym sessions, meaningless scrolling. Anything to avoid being alone with his thoughts. But the more he tried to outrun his mind, the faster it chased him. One night, while sitting by the window watching the city lights flicker, he realized something terrifying. He didn't recognize himself anymore. The dreams, the purpose, the joy, all gone. All replaced by an endless stream of overthinking. That was the night Daniel understood he wasn't fighting the world. He was fighting himself. To understand Daniel's struggle, you have to understand where it came from. He grew up in a quiet household, loving parents, strict expectations. Success was praised, failure was quietly punished. If he brought home an A, his father said, "Good, next time aim for an A+." If he made a mistake, even a small one, his mind learned something. Mistakes mean you're not good enough. That belief rooted itself deep inside him, and like most beliefs, it followed him into adulthood. Every decision he made came with fear, not of failing, but of not being enough. He became the man who double-checked every detail, who overthought every choice. People called him perfectionist. They didn't realize perfectionism is just fear wearing a nice suit. Daniel's mind was always busy. Even on quiet evenings, it buzzed. Thoughts layered over thoughts. Worries, analyses, predictions, imaginary arguments. It never stopped. He couldn't meditate. He couldn't relax. Whenever he tried to do nothing, guilt crept in. You should be doing something. You're wasting time. He thought productivity was control. But in truth, his mind controlled him. He didn't see it that way, of course. Nobody does until something forces them to look. It happened slowly. It always does. First, it was small things. Forgetting to reply to messages, skipping the gym, sleeping later. Then came the bigger cracks. Missed deadlines, losing focus, snapping at coworkers for no reason. One afternoon, during an important presentation, his mind went blank. Words he'd rehearsed a dozen times vanished. His vision blurred, his palms sweated, his heart raced. Panic hit him like a wave. Everyone was watching, waiting for him to speak, but he couldn't. He felt trapped inside his own body. Afterward, he laughed it off, said he wasn't feeling well. But deep down, he was shaken. He'd always prided himself on being in control. Now he couldn't even control his breathing. That night, he didn't sleep. His thoughts turned into weapons. You're falling apart. You can't even handle pressure. Everyone's going to see the truth. You're not who they think you are. Days turned into weeks of silent panic. He started dreading mornings. The mirror became his enemy. His reflection looked like a stranger. His mind, once sharp, now felt like a storm he couldn't escape. One evening while driving home, Daniel pulled over and just sat there. His hands trembled on the steering wheel. The city buzzed outside, but he couldn't hear it. His thoughts screamed louder than the world. He whispered, "What's happening to me?" And for the first time, his mind didn't answer, just silence. That silence was the first honest moment in years. In the weeks that followed, Daniel began noticing his thoughts differently. He realized they weren't facts, they were patterns. He'd built habits of thinking, always assuming the worst, always criticizing himself, always expecting disaster. His brain had been wired for fear, not peace. He started reading about the mind, psychology, mindfulness, emotional regulation. Not the fluffy kind of advice that says just be positive, but real insight into how the mind works. He learned that thoughts aren't commands, they're suggestions. He learned that emotions aren't enemies, they're messengers. And most importantly, he learned that awareness, simply noticing, is the first step to freedom. But awareness isn't easy. The mind resists it. When Daniel tried to sit still, his thoughts shouted louder. Every insecurity, every regret came flooding back. But instead of fighting them, he decided to listen. At first, it was painful. He realized how cruel he'd been to himself, how he'd spent years measuring his worth by productivity, approval, and perfection, how he'd believed his inner critic was the truth. But slowly, something changed. The more he observed his thoughts, the less power they had. The voices still spoke, but they no longer dictated his actions. He began journaling, not for answers, just for clarity. Every morning, he'd write what his mind was saying. At first, it was chaos, but over time, patterns appeared. The same fears, the same self-doubt, just wearing different disguises. And one day, he wrote a line that stopped him. "My mind is not my enemy. It's just scared." That sentence became a turning point. He realized his mind wasn't trying to destroy him. It was trying to protect him. Every anxious thought was a form of defense, built from old wounds. The problem wasn't the fear itself, it was his reaction to it. That realization didn't fix everything overnight, but it started healing something inside him. A quiet acceptance. It was a Sunday morning. Daniel sat by the same window where he'd once felt trapped. The city looked the same, but something inside him had shifted. For the first time in years, he wasn't trying to control his thoughts. He was simply watching them. They came and went. Memories, worries, plans, but he remained still. Then it hit him, clear and simple. You are not your thoughts. That truth landed deep. All these years he'd identified with every story his mind told him. I'm anxious. I'm failing. I'm broken. But now he saw it differently. Those were just thoughts, clouds passing through the sky of awareness. He closed his eyes, breathed deeply, and whispered, I'm here. Not in the past, not in the future. Here. In that quiet moment, the war inside him paused. The noise didn't vanish, but it softened. He realized control wasn't about silencing his mind. It was about understanding it. For the first time, Daniel felt peace. Not the dramatic kind, but the quiet kind. The kind that comes when you stop running from yourself. The weeks that followed weren't perfect, but they were different. Daniel still faced stress, deadlines, responsibilities. But now his mind wasn't the enemy. It was part of him, not the ruler of him. He began living intentionally. He took walks without his phone, spent evenings reading instead of scrolling, and allowed silence to exist without fear. He started noticing things he'd forgotten. The warmth of sunlight through his window, the sound of rain, the small kindness of strangers. Life hadn't changed. He had. He understood that the mind's nature is to think, constantly. But he no longer believed every thought. He learned to ask, is this thought helping me or hurting me? That simple question changed everything. And when old patterns tried to return, the anxiety, the perfectionism, the doubt, he met them with awareness. Ah, there you are, he'd say quietly, like recognizing an old friend. You don't control me anymore. The truth was clear now. Control doesn't mean suppressing your mind. It means seeing it for what it is, a tool. When you use it consciously, it builds you. When you let it run wild, it breaks you. We live in an age where our minds are constantly bombarded. News, opinions, distractions, comparisons. It's easy to forget that peace isn't something you find. It's something you create by choosing where to place your attention. Your thoughts will always speak. The question is, who's in charge, you or them? The mind can be your greatest ally or your greatest enemy. It can build a life full of joy, or it can destroy it from within. The difference lies in awareness, in learning to pause before reacting, in remembering that your mind is your servant, not your master. Control your mind, not by force, but by understanding. When you do, you'll realize that peace isn't the absence of thought. It's the presence of clarity. Your mind is a mirror. It reflects what you feed it. If you fill it with fear, it becomes your cage. If you fill it with awareness, it becomes your freedom.